Welcome to the Dreamy CEO podcast. I'm your host, Vicky Fan, your business and marketing mentor. Join me and the best guest speakers to talk all things business, marketing, and sales, leaning into self-care and lots about being an entrepreneur. So grab a coffee and tune in. Hello. We are welcoming Kyra today. Kyra is a hypnotherapist for entrepreneurs, designing a winning CEO mindset, which is trained to boost your emotional edge, abundance, and confidence so you can scale to your 7 and 8-figure self. So hello, Kyra. How are you?
Hi, Vicky. I'm very excited to be here and dive into any sort of like mindset goodies today.
Yay, I'm so excited. I'd love for you to kind of introduce yourself and, tell us a little bit of your background and your story in the online space.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you already mentioned, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and founders scaling to that 7 and 8 figure mark. And this is the next step after the strategy, right? Because a lot of businesses get built to 6 figures on strategy. And of course, there is always a mindset element. It makes it a lot easier, much more sustainable. But I was finding as these entrepreneurs and founders were reaching new levels of success, more money, they were coming up against these upper limits, these mindset barriers that were kind of creating this plateau. And
Mhm.
also the added pressure and responsibility of generating that level of success was a whole nother mindset game, right? So there comes a point in which the mindset, it becomes like a training, right? There is a training that is involved with getting to the next level, and you got to keep it really sharp because at the end of the day, it's all up to you whether you're going to make it happen, whether you're going to sustain for the long run in this journey. Because we all know as entrepreneurs, this is not an easy journey.
Mhm. Yes, I feel like with business development and personal development, they're like twin flames when being an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It requires you to really look at yourself at every possible edge because we're really overriding and starting to reprogram all of the things that we learned that were wrong, like the rejection, the failure, all the things that most people are really scared of and
Mhm.
hold them back as entrepreneurs. So when we can reprogram basically the pain into pleasure programs, we're going to be accelerating and executing at a much quicker pace. And I got into this industry because I actually started my entrepreneurial journey with a brick and mortar. So I own a fitness studio. I still do today. And so that was kind of the first leap in uh, all of my life savings, everything I had. I just didn't resonate with being in the 9 to 5 anymore. I was like, there just has to be something more. We've all been there, that feeling of we're meant for something else. This can't possibly be it. But unfortunately, it coincided with the pandemic. So my business went into pretty much what ended up being a 17-month lockdown. And during that time, I was like, oh, I guess, I should do something else. And I fell into, personal development work. I had no experience with it prior. I had done a little bit of therapy. And then, I think it was a manifestation course that I started with. And I was like, this can't also be real, right? But there was so much evidence. And I started to do the work and I started to feel better. And I had my quote unquote awakening, spiritual awakening. And from there, I didn't realize at the time that I was actually doing self hypnosis every day. I thought I was just listening to like some meditations, but I started to
Mhm.
recognize that I was feeling better. I was feeling more confident. And then I started to generate new opportunities. And then through a client of mine at the gym, she mentioned that she started seeing a hypnotherapist. And I was like, wait a minute, this is a job? And it was like instantaneously, I knew it was what I was meant to be doing. So then it all kind of just fell into place. I got certified, I started my business, and then it just took off from there. But I started off as a generalist, and then it started to evolve into, we all have this evolution early on in our business where you pretty much have a billion niches that you move through. Generalist hypnotherapist to confidence to money mindset. And then here I've ended up just working with developing winning mindsets for CEOs at, essentially for high performers.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
amazing. I loved hearing your story. I feel like with business, it's kind of like a canvas for you. So in a way, we're like projecting ourselves and of course as our personal brand, but we really get to see everything in like right in front of us. And I feel like, starting a business, for me personally, even like starting at a young age, I got to learn a lot about myself. And, walking through this world and people saying, you're so emotionally mature for your age, but I feel like a huge contributing factor was being an entrepreneur and like running a business and learning more about yourself. So I love that you were able to find so many like multi passionate routes for your business, for your life, and now you're transforming so many women's lives, and it's just so amazing. And something that you preach to your audience, right, is designing a winning CEO mindset, right? Train to boost your emotional edge and just scaling to 7, 8 figures. And just a huge part of that is emotional intelligence, right? Now, what does that mean for entrepreneurs, emotional intelligence? I'd love to hear, more of your thoughts on this.
So it's mental wealth, essentially. It's the softer skills that entrepreneurs need for sustainability and long-term growth because, we'll always find a new strategy. Strategies are so important. They're the framework to have a successful business. But a lot of the times I find people get stuck in their strategies. There are these mental bottlenecks, whether it's around visibility, whether it's around scarcity with money. Money is a big topic. And then also just with new levels of success, of course, it's connected with the fear of failure, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
sustaining new levels. So when we look at emotional intelligence and having an edge, a lot of the times, our society, the way that we grow up, we are very conditioned to live in cycles of validation, right? So we like want the evidence, we want approval, we want to be liked. And one of the big things that we'll probably talk about today a little bit later is perfectionism, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
one thing that really sabotages a lot of entrepreneurs in terms of getting to that next level. But when we're, dialing it back a little bit to that entrepreneurial edge, when your emotions run your business, it's very hard to make high quality decisions. And as an entrepreneur, your number one job is making decisions and also problem solving.
Yeah.
And so emotional decision making is often the detriment of most people's businesses because if you get negative feedback, right? If a launch doesn't go well, if you batch a bunch of content and it all gets lost, right? If you get taken out by those things, right, it's very hard to do anything in your business, right? If you think about, for example, like time of the month, right, or you're
Yeah.
hungover or you're heartbroken, you're in negative emotional states, which make it very difficult to do anything. It's the only thing that'll keep you in bed, right?
Yeah.
And so when your decisions are driven by emotion, right? And typically these emotions are connected to deeper mindset, AKA subconscious programs, when your emotions are driven by that, your behavior is going to be very different when you are making them from anxious states, from overwhelm, from burnout, right?
Mm.
From those cycles of like negative self-talk versus decisions that are driven by just data, right? If you are just clear and calm and grounded, those decisions are always going to be much more powerful, and the execution that then follows that is going to be that much more impactful, right? So
Mhm.
if you feel that your emotions run the show, you're going to be in these big emotional roller coaster waves where when you're in the highs, you're great, you're feeling good. But when you're in the lows, it's really hard to get out of those spirals, to get out of, the procrastination, the analysis paralysis, all of those like little pesky habits that prevent execution. And again, execution and the quality and speed of the execution is going to determine how quickly you build momentum towards success, because we all know it's about generating those daily habits that accelerate momentum. Momentum is the key to everything, right?
Yes, I love that. And I love that you brought up self-talk as well, right? Because I think that really defines how the action that you take in that day, in that week, in that month. And I feel like, as entrepreneurs, that perfectionism and being wrapped up in the strategy, what you need to do, and things like that. In a way, we are kind of like playing avoidance, right? When we're hitting those lows of like, do you know what? I'll just do it tomorrow. Or, I'm not feeling great today. Let's do it tomorrow. Or this hasn't been a great day. It's not going to be a good week. It's not going to be a good month. It's just the way it is. And I feel like that really contributes to that cycle of, avoiding the the action that you're needing to take to get yourself out of there. So I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about, avoidance, because I feel like that is a huge, in a way, like throwing a lighter in a bonfire
Yeah.
almost, right? So yeah, I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about avoidance when it comes to the very low lows.
Oh, okay. So there's so many things that I can say about this. The first thing that comes to mind is, if we're going to talk about the perfectionism, the negative self-talk, the avoidance, that
Mm-hmm.
particular route, this, of course, has a lot to do with our self-perception, like how we see ourselves and ultimately our self-worth, right? A lot of my clients, whether they're aware of it or not, have a worthiness complex, right, around having more. And the English term is really imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Like, who am I to? Am I really going to achieve that success? Am I going to be the lucky one like them? High levels of comparison, right? And so, that then will tie into those kind of pesky thoughts where you're like, I'll do it tomorrow, right? Or,
Yeah.
today wasn't a good day. Well, or I don't look that great. And all of this leads to procrastination. But really, it's not about, really looking that great or, that they're ahead of you and all these things. These are just like surface level symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the deeper conversation around, what is it about you that you are feeling that you aren't good enough to be doing, charging X prices, right? I see that a lot with pricing blogs, and that has to do with money mindset too. Looking at, reaching out to certain people that are bigger names, have bigger accounts, creating new opportunities. Oh, they won't want to talk to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or there's a lot of the if it's not perfectly executed in the day, you kind of just like throw in the towel. Like I had a client who was just like, if it didn't go like the first three things didn't go well, she was just like, I'm going to just do it tomorrow. Right. And this ties down into our patterns of like wanting instant gratification and perfectionism because we were taught that those are the ways. Right. So like typically we work
Mm-hmm.
40 hours in a week, 9 to 5 and get a paycheck, right? You order your coffee, you pick it up at Starbucks, right? There is like an action that precedes a result. But it doesn't work like that in entrepreneurship. So we think that if the instant gratification doesn't happen, that something's going wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other side of it is that with perfection, especially I see this mostly in my high performing clients where you grew up in uh, you know, a family and household where there was like a high level of competition with siblings, right? Or you were just always in competition or you had to get straight A's. I'm sure maybe you,
Yeah.
with having Asian immigrant parents,
Yes.
face that where it's like, get straight A's, win gold, come first, be at the top, have the highest paying job, get into the best schools, all of that narrative. And so
Yeah.
when that's happening and you succeed, you get love and praise and celebration, right? And with my parents, a lot of the Asian families I see as well, and immigrants that come through, and their upbringings with their family is that when you're not achieving those things, there is like very little emotional expression, or there
Mm-hmm.
might be like criticism or fear or anger or shame or guilt expressed. So,
Yeah.
our subconscious program that's created from the ages of 0 to 7, that predominantly determines our behaviors today and what we believe about love, success, money, all the things, right?
Yes.
So when we learn, okay, success is really good, right? That's when I'm validated, that's when I'm loved, that's when I'm seen, right? Yay, right? But then if I fail, it's really, really bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to go into that pain. I don't want to be shamed. I don't want to feel fear, right? So we'll do anything to avoid it. So even though logically in our day to day, when we are avoiding something in our business, it's really not a big deal, right? Like it's like,
Yeah.
okay, like I didn't, finish that task or whatever it might be, right? Showing up on social media or, pitching the new price in the sales call or launching the new product or service. But the reality is that we're avoiding pain. We are
Mm,
automatically assuming based on our programs that something bad is going to happen,
I
right? That we're going to
see.
fail, that we're going to
Yeah.
get rejected, that we're not going to be accepted, that they're not going to like us, right? And
Yeah.
even though the reality is that that's okay, it's just part of business, our minds, the part of the mind that gets triggered is like, it's extremely painful. Like, I don't want to go there. Let's not do that. Let's avoid it. So even though you know what to do, right? This is what I always say, like, if you know what to
Yeah.
do and you're not doing it, something subconscious is blocking you because you know you got to show up online. You know you want to increase your prices. You know you want to launch that new product or service, right? The mastermind, the one-on-one, whatever it might be. But there's a part of you that feels back. There's a big part of you that is not aligned with success, that is not aligned with more money, because there's actually a consequence that's
Hmm.
being perceived in your mind. And your subconscious is 95% of your mind. So like when we're thinking, yeah, I want it, the 95% of you is like fear, danger, don't go there. And
Yeah.
it's actually blocking execution because in your mind, the perceived consequence, right, of
Mhm.
getting what you want is actually greater than the potential benefit, because deep down, you don't actually believe that you're going to achieve it. Right. So it's
Wow.
extremely pesky and it goes all the way down the rabbit hole. And it's
Yeah.
a deeper belief system because if you knew that you were going to achieve it, if you knew that there was pleasure that you were moving towards, you'd run towards it. Right.
Hmm.
So we got to look at the deeper reason, right? The subconscious blocks that may be coming up around more money, more visibility, and more success, about why there is, this is an amazing question I always love to ask my clients, like, what is the consequence of getting what you want, right? Because we think, yeah,
Mm.
I want more money, I want more success, I want to be more visible. But
Yeah.
there's often a consequence, right?
Hmm.
Especially, money. It could be like you're, deep rooted from childhood. It's like you'll become a greedy person, or money will
Mm.
change you, right? Or
See,
people will want something from you, right?
yeah, I love that you brought up the childhood state because, in a way, everything that you've been told or your upbringing as a child, I feel like that reflects in how you run your business initially
Yes.
before you step on that, personal development journey path. And in a way, you're putting yourself in this box, right? And, whatever people have been telling you, like since you were growing up, you'll never make it, or, you should follow this certain path, or maybe you're even like something slightly like maybe you're not good with money or something like
Mhm,
that. And I
mhm.
feel like that deeply impacts the way you run your business, because when it comes to entrepreneurship and running a business, income spikes and dips are just always going to happen. And I feel like as soon as it dips, I feel like that could become a moment of spiraling, because it's like,
Yes.
oh, I'm not good with money. And then, you're constantly in that cycle, which I see and hear a lot from, other entrepreneurial friends. But I feel like it's so embracing that entrepreneurship comes with the highs and lows. You're going down this path of like, extreme weather conditions and a crazy rocky path, but, really trooping through and embracing the journey as well, right?
Absolutely. And when you can
Yeah.
reprogram, the failures and the rejections, and just, again, with the emotional edge, the intelligence, that's where you're going to save time and energy. Because again, as you mentioned, like when you're in negative states, it takes you out, right? Like if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
feeling good, I'm taken out, right?
Yeah.
If you're feeling good, you have a lot more energy and capacity to execute. And so when we can reprogram your mind to look at failure and rejection just as part of, like, it's literally no big deal, right? Like
Yeah.
it's part of it. And the more rejection, the more failures you have, they're just stepping stones towards your success. There's more data for you to have to make data driven decisions to move your
Mm-hmm.
business forward, right? But we need to overcome that programming, that that kind of knee jerk fear that comes through, that's like, oh my gosh, like end of the world,
Yeah.
or like the number in your bank account like determines something about your worth, right? Again, that self-worth
Mm-hmm.
piece, having the ability to separate your identity, right, from that high achievement of like what it looks like for you to have success, what it means, the number of dollars in your bank account. When you just realize that has nothing to do with your worth, then
Mm-hmm.
you become a lot more free. And again, the decisions that you make are a lot more neutral and controlled. And to your point, a big thing that entrepreneurs need to rewire is around money, right? Money, emotional intelligence is really important too, because money is is just a tool, right? Like it's
Yeah.
literally just something that you can leverage to create more of what you want, right? And when you can, again, look at money with neutrality and not make it mean something about you, right? Or
Yeah.
make it mean like it has to come through the business, or, debt is bad, or like whatever stories, again, that you were told growing up. If you can
Mm-hmm.
unravel all of that and just kind of look at everything that you have available to you, debt, money from parents, inheritances, if you have that available to you, savings, whatever it might be, money through your business,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. Just look at everything as neutral, leverage all of that so that you can get yourself to the next level, investing in yourself, investing in, your wealth, whether that's in real estate or your own personal savings and whatever it might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we have to be able to be neutral, right? Overcome anxiety and overwhelm those negative states. And I actually have a little tool available. It's just like a small exercise that we can share with your audience too. But it's like,
Yeah.
it takes a couple of minutes. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system. We get you into neutrality. And that's when you're going to make the best decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, the money neutrality is huge because a lot of the times the childhood programming around scarcity, right?
Yeah.
It's going to run out. It's never enough. Like I see people and clients who have generated 7, 8 figures, it still never feels enough because the scarcity loop is happening because deep down, they think it's actually going to run out. They think it might have been a fluke. They don't know if they
Mm-hmm.
can sustain it. There's so much pressure, right, to
Yeah.
continue to hold on to this level of success. And when you can recognize that the reality is that there's always more money, right? Money's being printed every day. People are buying and selling every single second of the day, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
always new opportunities. You can always generate, like, there's a million ways to make money. Like, if everything went sideways tomorrow, I could get a job at Starbucks if I wanted, right? It's not
Yeah.
the end of the world, but we are so limited in the way that we're thinking about money and we're
Mm-hmm.
thinking about opportunities. But the reality is that it's endless. So if you knew that you were never going to really lose out, and if you knew that there was always more, building that kind of like money EQ and abundance mindset, it's going to make you a lot more risk tolerant. And you need to be able
Mm-hmm.
to take really kind of risky, but like risk
Mm-hmm.
calculated risks as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur to really push to those next levels.
Yes. I feel like, an example is kind of like walking down the road and you see like rain clouds and they're about to like pour down on you. It's kind of like, how will you face that? It's kind of like the obstacles that you're seeing in your business. How are you going to face it? Are you going to wait for it to kind of like go away and you're in this waiting for perfection kind of game, the long game? Or, are you going to get prepared, have your umbrella out, be in your little rain jacket or something and, follow through with it? And I feel like the more that you do that, the next time another storm comes, you're able to be prepared. And I feel like you've walked that path before and you've known how it felt. And remember that first, state of, weariness of should I commit? Should I run away? Kind of action towards any kind of obstacles. And I feel like the more that you surround yourself or the more that you are actually taking risks or calculated risks as you said and facing it in the forefront, I feel like you grow that emotional intelligence or just be able to make better decisions and more
Yes.
aligned decisions going forward within your business because you've walked that path. It feels a little bit more natural to you, but the first step is actually taking that step, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing around avoidance too. Like, how do we overcome that? Right. I recently wrote about this in my newsletter where, you literally just have to look at the next step. Right.
Mm-hmm.
We're so caught up with like getting to the goal and the end, like, that next income milestone, right? Whether it's 5 figures, multiple 5 figures, 6 figure months, like whatever it is for you, but we're not focusing on the right thing. We need to focus on like what is actually within my control right now and what is actually the next step. Because when we can start to make the steps more micro, when we
Mm-hmm.
take a step, it's like a little like dopamine hit. Our brain is like, ooh, we're like moving forward, right? And we love,
Yeah.
like, nobody likes to feel stuck, right?
Yes.
And so when we can start building momentum behind that, and that's every single day, right? Our
Mm-hmm.
daily habits, they have to be in alignment with that next level. But again, all you need for that next level is to take the next step today, right? And just
Mm-hmm.
get the ball rolling. And it doesn't mean that you need to finish it. Like, again, that perfectionism, like finish it now, or it has to be perfect, or it has to look a certain way. It's like, no, we just need to take another step because, as you mentioned, this is why the imposter syndrome comes up. You're going somewhere you haven't been before. It's actually very positive, right? Like, we can either look at it as in like, I've never been there. There's people better than me. Well, I know what to do. I can't figure it out. Or the reality is like, wow, I'm going somewhere I haven't been before, which means I'm growing and expanding to a new level that is a possibility for me because I'm taking steps towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be perfect. Learning anything new sucks. I'm going to suck. It's going to suck. And that's okay. Right?
Yeah.
When we can
Yeah.
start to normalize all the things that we learned are that were super scary, like the rejection, like the failure, having a low month, it doesn't mean anything about your future ability to create success. There are going to be ebbs and flows. You said it.
Mm-hmm.
It's non-linear, this path, right? And
Yeah.
so, when we can self-anchor, right, this is where the emotional intelligence, well, it really gives you a strong internal locus of control because you're not really going to be thrown off by the external circumstances because there's always going to be many things that you cannot control, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what you can control is your mindset. And again, overriding, and it doesn't mean we ignore emotions. We are human. We are meant to have negative emotions here and there. But
Yeah.
our ability to manage the anxiety and overwhelm, again, like increasing our baseline state when we don't have those around, right? And this is one of the biggest things that my clients first do in phase one is just like getting over the anxiety, the overwhelm, the fear, the scarcity. You have
Mm-hmm.
so much more space. Like, think about the days when you feel so confident, there's so much flow. You have so
Yeah.
much more space for creativity, for innovation, for building your business, for execution, because you're not in survival mode. You're not like putting out the flames of your past constantly being like, am I good enough? Can I do this? Is this going to work? What if it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't? You're actually just
Yeah.
focusing on the future and around execution towards that.
I think a major thing is trusting yourself, right?
Yes.
And being able to really like stay in tune with all of your lived experiences and being able to pull from that versus comparing yourself to others because they have their own lived experiences. And one of my favorite exercises that I've been doing for like a year now, but before going to bed every night, I kind of say, I know this is kind of silly, but it really changed everything. It's kind of saying to myself, when I wake up in the morning, I'll know exactly what I need to do. And I feel like that in itself kind of puts me in the driver's seat of like being able to trust myself and being able to, lean into all the highs and lows, be able to take the experiences from there and, throw it into the decisions that I make in the future in my business in my life, right? So I'd love for you to, share with those who are tuning in, different experiments or different exercises that you would recommend for those who are stepping onto this path of emotional intelligence and being more self-aware.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, self-trust is everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a little background on why people struggle with this concept. And your self-trust is that you believe in yourself, you believe you're capable, you know that you can do it and move yourself forward. But most people get stuck in the analysis paralysis, again, the avoidance, the procrastination, because of, one of the biggest things is the perfectionism complex from childhood because we are taught to be a certain way, right? And if we like possibly showed a side of us or we made a mistake or we did something that was like kind of like unique and quirky to us and it was shut down and we were shamed, it gets hidden, right? Like we don't want to show it because again we're avoiding pain. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we can learn to again start expressing ourselves, starting to be more authentic and putting ourselves out there, knowing that it's okay even if you get rejected, even if it doesn't work out, again that builds that trust muscle where you start taking bigger action, right? And
Mm-hmm.
again, when we see ourselves in more confidence, in a more positive light, is yeah, I can do that. You're going to also create bigger opportunities, put yourself in bigger rooms, charge higher price points, put yourself out there and be more visible. And that's what is necessary for your business, right? So,
Yeah.
before bed is an amazing time. I don't, I have a big thing where I'm like, don't do affirmations, right? They don't really work. But it's when you're just like saying things and hoping for the best, right?
Yeah.
When you have very intentional thoughts, that you want to reprogram, hypnotherapy is what I use with my clients. It's the fastest way because we are creating new neural pathways for your brain, where all the things that used to create pain around failure, rejection, all those things, we just reprogram them for success, right? All the fear and scarcity around money, we reprogram for abundance, right? And so when you are actually right before bed, it's a great time because we're actually entering and accessing theta brainwave states. And there's a higher level of neuroplasticity that happens at that point. And
Mhm.
so the reprogramming is you're more open to accepting suggestions, right? So
Yeah.
hypnosis is not like mind control. It is
I
actually just,
love hypnosis,
it's life
honestly.
changing.
Yes.
And so, it is a point in which you are really just training and exercising your brain while creating new neural connections that were previously painful that keeps us stuck, right? Any, again, negative emotions keep us from doing things, right? We don't want to move towards pain, and reprogram them for neutrality and pleasure so that, again, in the morning, you're more willing and more open to going ahead and executing in a new positive perception. And also, when we think about content creation, for example, I'm sure a lot of your clients create content, new ideas. A good thing to do is like the night before, write down 5 ideas, right? Or, however many that, you, again, micro steps. So if you're like 5 is overwhelming, I don't want to do it, right? Self-sabotage, I'm just going to not, right? Start with one.
Yeah.
And our brains will start like, subconsciously as we sleep, start to like generate new ideas and creativity. So when we wake up, we have a little bit more juju to like go ahead and execute and, kind of have those moments where like things just drop out of thin air, right? Again, those are like when we're
Yes.
in theta brainwave states where you're kind of like in the shower or driving, you're like, I had a great idea. And like you're writing in your notes and you have like a million notes now, right? Every entrepreneur ever, right?
So relatable. I'm like
Yeah.
every night before bed, I'm like in my notes app. Oh wait, I have to wake up again, kind of,
Yeah.
to write this down.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's when we're accessing theta brainwave states, which again promote higher levels of creativity. And creativity and innovation are going to be the cornerstone for your success. That's what's going to like set you apart. That's the edge, right? And, to that point as well, uh, actually in my newsletter this Saturday, I have a overcoming money blocks, right? And it
Okay.
talks about like walking through the steps of how to start diving into your subconscious. And because, the reality is that we all want more money, but there is a part of us where ultimately, like, the stories of like, money doesn't grow on trees, right? That like money has to be hard, or,
Yes.
money is the root of all evil, or it'll make you greedy, or don't be like, don't have too much. Don't let people know that you have too much because then people will want it from you. Like there's all kinds of
Yeah.
weird narratives. So it's about how to break down and go into your subconscious and what are the programs that are determining essentially how you generate, how you save, how you invest all of your behaviors around money. Because again, our subconscious, the 95% of our mind, that deals with our behaviors. And again, our behaviors are our everyday experiences. It's what we create day in, day out. So we need to change the deeper belief system so that we can change, our daily habits towards momentum, towards the next level. So those are some areas to look at. And again, my
Mhm.
question from earlier, when we're looking at upper limit blocks, like what is the consequence of getting what you want? What is, the consequence of your next level, right? Will there be a greater
Mhm.
level of sacrifice? Are you already burning out, right? Are you already stressed out? Like your body's like, I can't take anymore. Or like,
Mhm.
do you already feel super isolated, right? And knowing that you're going to like, quote unquote, work harder and work more. And again, that's not always the case, but
Yeah.
our brains are like associating so much pain and consequence that we will not move forward. So those are some questions to ask, that I always find are great starting points, for
Mhm.
doing the deeper work into starting to dive into the subconscious.
I love that you brought up the consequences because in a way you're able to prepare yourself of, the quote unquote risk factors that are coming through. It's like being able to prepare yourself for that next level of success. And, with everything that comes, highs, lows, it comes right at you. And I feel like being able to, look at it in again, like kind of like on paper, like data, like you said, right? And in a more mechanical way can really, really elevate the way you step into that higher level of yourself, right?
Absolutely. And
Yes.
like you said, more success, more responsibility, more pressure. You think, oh, like I'll have more money, it'll be a lot easier. Yeah,
Mhm.
you'll be able to hire more, delegate all those things. But it's still going to be this pressure. It's, like you said, it's never ending challenges, right? There's always a
Yes.
level of uncertainty. So your mindset's ability, what I call mindset currency is like the adaptability, the resilience, the ability to bounce back quickly because this is all time saved, right? And also your
Mhm.
quality of life, right? I've had, one of my clients almost quit her 7-figure business because she's like, I can't take it anymore. Like,
Wow.
this is the last straw because the mental and emotional state was at an all-time low. Nobody wants to live like that. Like it's very
Mhm.
hard to keep going and feeling like you need to sustain a certain level of success, let alone grow, right, to the next level,
Yeah.
right? And so when you take care of like your mental and emotional hygiene, it changes everything. Like she's now raised like more than 7 figures in her business, new 6 and 7 figure contracts. But she was sabotaging because she was like, I don't feel worthy of moving forward. I'm not capable of fulfilling these contracts. Like, what if I screw it up? Like all of this doubt, right? So when we can get you into a position of closing down all of those programs and getting you into a new baseline of just confidence and good like high self-worth, like you can do this, and it doesn't mean that's always going to be easy, but you
Yeah.
need to take care of your mental and emotional hygiene because that's what's going to allow for high quality decision making and execution and just sustainability. Like this isn't like
Mhm.
a short run game. Like you're in this to build a very successful 6, 7, 8 figure business, and you are the only one that can do this. So like if you're not good, if you're not on your game, the rest of your business just as a natural byproduct is going to suffer.
I love our conversation today, and I feel like I've learned so much. And for those who are tuning in, definitely take notes because this is amazing. I'd love for you to, share with those who are tuning in, what's happening in your world. I know that you mentioned your newsletter. I'd love for you to share, how people can come find you and how they can work with you.
Yeah, amazing. So any platform, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, it's just at I am Kyra Yang. So KyraYang. You can find me on any of those platforms there. And then, yeah, I have a newsletter. It's just a 5-minute training once a week, Saturdays at 9 or 10 a.m. I'm playing around with the time right now. But, it's looking at deeper mindset work, looking at subconscious, looking at abundance, how to build more confidence, and really looking at overcoming mindset blocks as you're scaling. So joining other entrepreneurs. So again, just once a week, a deep mindset training, about 5 minutes. So I want to make it relatable. And, if you have any topics that are interesting to you, happy to write about that and share. And then I also work with clients privately, one-to-one in 3, 6, and 12-month containers, really scaling to that 7 and 8 figures, looking for that deeper mindset work. So if you know what to do and you're not doing it, and you've tried all the journaling and the affirmations and, the YouTube meditations, definitely book a free strategy call with me. And we can look at how we can support you in terms of scaling as you move through your strategy. Because at this point, most of my clients, they have a business that works. They know what their strategy is, but they're coming up against these mental bottlenecks and really just closing down those old programs, the anxiety, the overwhelm, the negative self-talk, so that you can be at your best, so that you can, again, catapult to new levels of performance and success and break through those upper limits.
Wow, thank you so much. I'll definitely make sure to tag all of your socials in the show notes. But thank you so much for being on here today. I really loved our conversation.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thank you for tuning in to the Dreamy CEO podcast. I'm your host, Vicky Fan, and I've loved sharing my journey and the stories of other amazing women entrepreneurs with you. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep thriving as that entrepreneur, my friend.